welcome back to the program. On this Thursday, another fast-moving week in the summer of 2013. 21 minutes after the hour, Brian Summerfield, Trucker Randy, your defending fathers.
Brian, I reached out this morning to Dr. Scott Lively from Massachusetts. He'll be in Traverse City tomorrow night attending an event that has been set up for him, and asked him to call into the show. Are you there, Scott? Hello?
Should be hooked up here in just a second. Hold on.
All righty. Got his information from some good friends down in Traverse City that has set up this event, and thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about it and find out exactly what they'll be discussing over there in Traverse City tomorrow night. Hey, good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well.
Appreciate you coming on Patriot Voice, Your Defending Father show this morning. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and what you're going to be talking about tomorrow night here in Traverse City?
Well, for 25 years, I've described myself as a missionary to the pro-family movement. I'm an attorney and a pastor, and my primary area of ministry emphasis has been standing up for the biblical position on sexuality, and especially opposing the homosexual political agenda.
One of the things that I notice is that in the past, you've been involved in events here in northern Michigan. A few years ago, you and a good friend of ours, Gary Glenn from the American Family Association, participated in a couple of events. Why don't you tell people about that a little bit, and so they can get a better perspective of your background?
Well, actually, the last time I saw Gary in person was on 9/11. Both of us were in Washington, D.C. at the headquarters of Concerned Women for America for a national strategy meeting on this issue. And we ended up driving together in my rental car out to Columbus, Ohio, to Linda Harvey's house, where I spent the next few days. I think we dropped him along the way somewhere. But, yeah, we've got some roots.
Yep. One of the things that is going on tomorrow night there in Traverse City, now this is going to be at the, I believe, the American Legion Hall on Hastings Street. The title of this talk is The Great Debate, the First Amendment versus Sexual Orientation Regulations, which should prevail. How is it exactly that you guys came up with this title, and what will be discussed there tomorrow night in Traverse City?
Well, I was in England in February and working with a group there trying to strategize how to sort of revive the pro-family movement there in that country. It's more in tatters than here, even in the United States. And out of that came the emphasis on the what in this country is called the First Amendment. In England, it's the first principle of the Magna Carta. The English Church must be free. Here, the first principle of our Bill of Rights is Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And then the second principle is freedom of speech. And so out of that came sort of a brainstorm and an epiphany that really that's what we need to address here in this country. That's the way to bring the focus to exactly what's going on in the culture war. This really comes down to a contest between the First Amendment rights of religious liberty and freedom of speech versus what in England they call sexual orientation regulations. Over here, we go with the long name anti-discrimination policies based on sexual orientation, and that's what the whole fight is about. And so this debate strategy, this idea of challenging the other side to come in and defend their desire and goal to put the First Amendment under the sexual orientation regulations in terms of authority and supremacy. They want these anti-discrimination policies based on sexual orientation to trump the First Amendment, and that's what the debate is about: who should prevail.
One of the questions that come up constantly is that in this debate, that again, it can't be discrimination. You can't discriminate against someone, for obviously, race, creed, color, whatever. But, my argument or counter to that, and I'm sure you probably may have a same opinion. I mean, you're born a black person. You're born a male or a female. Sexual orientation is a choice.
Yeah, it's not an immutable characteristic, although they've been trying for 30 or 40 years to dig up some kind of scientific basis for it. They've consistently failed because it doesn't exist. And in any case, sexual conduct is voluntary except for rape, so it has to be a choice. So whether or not your temptation to engage in it may not be a choice like choosing vanilla or chocolate ice cream, but it's certainly a choice whether you get into bed with somebody or not. So this whole idea that it's not a choice is just simply ridiculous.
Right. One of the other things that are going on at this event, we've tried unsuccessfully to get a personality, a radio personality, to agree to moderate this debate. Also, even getting folks from the other side, from the gay agenda side, to actually confirm whether or not they'll show up and debate you. Have you had any updates on that as far as whether or not the other side isn't going to in fact show up to debate against you?
Well, I've never. Although I want them to show up, I want people to be able to hear both sides, because that's when you can really see how bankrupt all their arguments are. Which is why they're not going to show up, because they don't want. See, they don't want to give quote unquote legitimacy to the pro-family position, and they don't want to put themselves in a situation where they have to explain themselves. They want to rely on this sort of top-down totalitarian style of marketing this benign image of the gay movement to everybody through television shows and movies and media control and academia, where they can actually suppress everybody else's point of view except in an edited context, where they get to sort of pick and choose out of our comments what they want people to hear. So in a debate format like this, where both sides get to speak exactly what they believe and explain why they believe it, that's the last thing in the world that they want to happen, because they just do not want people to be able to hear what people like me have to say. Now, I hope they do show up, and I will be completely respectful and civil in this dialogue, as I always am with them. They're not with me, but I don't expect them to. So what I'm going to do instead, we're going to hold out right to the last second. We're going to do it as a debate. If any of them show up,
right,
if any qualified person shows up to represent their point of view, but if they don't, then I'm going to present their arguments for them.
Excellent. Hey, Doctor, we have to go to a hard break. Can you stay on through the news for us?
Absolutely.
Got a bunch of Facebook comments. We'll be back. I'm Trucker Randy. He's Brian Summerfield with Dr. Scott Lively. We are your defending fathers. We'll be right back.
To the program here on this Thursday. Brian Summerfield, Trucker Randy, your defending fathers, being joined this segment with Dr. Scott Lively on the phone today with us.
Hey, Doctor, one of the Facebook comments I got is a question for you, and I'm sure you'll be discussing this tomorrow night as well. The gay agenda people always want to throw out that nowhere in the Bible is homosexuality discussed.
Wow. They couldn't be more wrong. Not only is homosexuality discussed, it's identified all through Scripture as the example of the extreme, the most extreme form of rebellion against God in terms of the breaking of the second great commandment, and all the way from the beginning to the end of the Bible, homosexuality is always associated with personal and social chaos and calamity, from Noah's flood to Sodom and Gomorrah, to Leviticus 18, to Judges 19, to Romans 1, to 1 Timothy 1. It's just 1 Corinthians chapter 6, book of Jude, book of Revelation. It's all through the Bible. They're just a bunch of liars.
Why is it that the people who choose to participate in this type of sexual activity, when there's been so many studies and so many areas of reports that document the health risk, the promiscuity that goes on in those type of relationships, what is it about this particular, I'm going to call it choice, for a lack of a better word? Why is it that they so much refuse to look at all the actual scientific research and documentation that's out there?
Well, I'm not a Catholic, but I actually think that Pope John Paul described the situation best when he used a two-word phrase, implicitly disordered, when he talked about homosexuality. It's an implicitly disordered condition that it's not really all that much different than any other temptation that people suffer with that has a sort of addictive component to it. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict myself for 16 years. Actually, used to sleep under bridges and beg for money on street corners. I didn't wake up one day and decide I'm going to go out and become an alcoholic. There were factors in my life that caused me to go off in the wrong direction. But it was always a choice to put the bottle to my lips. And it was always a choice whether I was going to seek help and recovery from it or to indulge myself in it. And that's the same thing with homosexuality, that most homosexuals do not choose to have the temptation of same-sex attraction. And most of them really don't want it. When you hear them, when they're actually really honest about it, you'll hear that in their earlier lives they struggle and struggle and struggle, and then they finally just give up. And that's when this gay theology it becomes so helpful to them, because it provides them a rationalization for being able to continue to do what they don't want to do, but they can't help themselves. And that's really, I think, an honest, compassionate view of what most of them struggle with. But the movement, the gay movement, that it insists that homosexuality is innate and unchangeable, that God actually intended for people to be homosexual and to embrace it, that's really demonic, because it's steering people away from the natural desire to seek health and wholeness into acceptance of dysfunction as the best you're going to get. And so a message like mine, although it's received with a lot of anger by the other side, telling the simple hard truth is the best thing that can happen for somebody that's bound up in some kind of addictive lifestyle like they are.
One of the phenomenons that has even happened in my own family, and I don't know if you're seeing more of this nationwide as you go through your travels, or maybe you hear this type of testimony or not, but I have two female members of my family who were heterosexual, were married, had children. Certain event took place in their marriage where their husbands were basically unfaithful to them. It caused divorce and visitations, with the fathers coming and picking the kids up on weekends, every other weekend, and things like that. But these women, being so destroyed over what the man did to them, got on Facebook, started chatting with other women, and now have lesbian partners living with them. It seems like women in today's society seem to be for whatever reason, coming out of the closet, magically realizing that all of a sudden, after being married and birthing children, and still raising these young children, that they're now all of a sudden lesbians. Have you seen that phenomenon in what you've been traveling and doing?
Absolutely, and in my observation and experience, that lesbianism really is more than anything else a retreat from the company of men. It's escaping from the pain that they experience in relationships with men. It usually takes the form of it usually starts with sexual molestation, and girls are far more likely to be sexually molested than boys, even though a lot of boys are too. But when a child goes through that kind of a trauma, when a little girl gets molested by her stepdad or an uncle or something like that, or a next door neighbor, then it's very easy for her to sort of believe that all men are pigs and to retreat, just to seek some kind of escape from that kind of pain. And lesbianism is the perfect relationship, because it's all about women. And the mythical, or maybe it was actual, island of Lesbos, right? What was it? It was a sanctuary for women who are escaping from men. And in today, it's mostly that way. There's some women that are just doing it as sort of rebellion against patriarchal order. It's kind of the college lesbianism is sort of known for that. But I think if you dug down in the lives of almost every lesbian, you would find a little girl that is afraid of men and just doesn't want to be with them because of trauma.
Right. One of the movies that we have talked about on this show and have actually showed at some of our Tea Party meetings, you're, I'm sure, very familiar with it, is Curtis Bauer's film, Agenda, Grinding America Down.
I haven't seen it, no, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll make sure you get a copy of it tomorrow night in Traverse City.
Thank you.
The point of his movie is all predicated around the book called The Naked Communist, former FBI agent back in 1958, the year I was born, where they listed 45 specific goals of the Communist Party on how to take down America. And one of those goals was to promote the idea that homosexuality was normal, healthy, and productive for society. And by breaking down the traditional family and promoting, basically using the women's movement as a way to get away from the patriarchal family you were referring to, is actually an actual agenda that communists
it is. Right, that came from the Frankfurt School in Germany. Marxism is grounded in evolution, and it's the idea that society is continuously evolving toward this eventual perfect utopian society where everyone is equal, and et cetera, et cetera. It's the leftist fantasy, and that because it takes so long to get there, Marxists believe that they have to destroy existing society so they can rebuild and move the thing along faster toward this eventual what we would eventually get to anyway, but they're just going to make it happen quicker, and they're going to do it by destroying everything. Well, they started with a focus on economics. That was what Marx was all about, was economics. But after this, Frankfurt School shifted the focus to what we now call social or cultural Marxism, and it was the idea of undermining and subverting and overthrowing the moral culture, not just the economic culture. And out of that came people like Herbert Marcuse. Marcuse was sort of the spearhead, came into this country from Germany. He was a high-level professor at Brandeis, at UC Berkeley, at Columbia, and developed an enormous following. And he wasn't a homosexual himself, but he taught that homosexuals were the perfect agents of this goal because that's their personal agenda anyway, the overthrow of the heterosexual culture and replacement with this anything-goes sexuality where marriage is, biblical marriage is gone, the family structure is eliminated, and there was actually three things that they were going to use to sort of bring about this radical revolutionary change to collapse the system, which was homosexuality, radical feminism, and race war. And those three things are all being fostered and fed by the far left.
One of the points I want to finish with you on, we've got just a couple minutes here before we're going to go to our break, and I really appreciate you being on with us. Tomorrow night, if the other side doesn't show up willing to debate, which is ultimately would be the perfect scenario so that you could actually engage these people, if they don't show up, how exactly are you going to proceed with the debate if the other side doesn't show up?
Well, I'm going to give a lecture on the topic of the First Amendment versus sexual orientation regulations, and have a long question and answer format. And if I'm sure that there are going to be homosexuals and other leftists who show up, and I'm going to prefer their question to give them, favor their side's questions. And and if you're listening to the program right now, if you are completely against everything I have to say, and you don't like the fact that I'm coming in and all that, you can come. I challenge you. Just hit me with any question that you want on this issue, and I will take the question. I will answer it. We're going to put it on. We're going to have it on film. We're going to make it available for people to see it. And if you guys don't, or they don't raise the questions, I'll raise them myself and answer them. And I will honestly do the best that I can to present things from their perspective first, before I show why it's wrong. I'm not going to set up a bunch of straw men like they do, right? Whenever we're not around. In fact, since they don't let us be around whenever they talk about this, they're always putting up false arguments, putting false arguments in our mouths, and then answering the false argument instead of what we actually believe and say.
Right. So, you've heard these arguments enough in the past. I'm sure you can recite them verbatim, so you know exactly what to put out there, that if they don't show up and have the courage to stand up and speak out, you'll be able to put them out there for them because you've heard them so many times.
Right. It's been 10 years since I've heard a new argument from the other side. In fact, these guys, and what's coming out of the colleges and out of all the people that are sort of become champions of gay rights, that most of them, or many of them, are not themselves homosexuals. It's just they memorize a lot of sophistry. There's a lot of rhetoric that is subtly false, but people have a difficult time answering. Like, how does my gay marriage affect you? Right? That's one of the most popular ones today. Sit and just say, well, let's say, how does my next door neighbor's house being robbed affect me? How does somebody across town looking at child pornography affect my family? Well, it doesn't affect my family directly. And if you break into my house and steal, that's direct. But if you break into my neighbor's house, I'm still affected. All of us are affected because you are attacking the fabric of society itself. The confidence that we can all have in a set of basic moral presuppositions that are designed to protect and preserve basic tenets of civilization, like natural marriage and things like that. So they're full of these things. They love euphemisms. They love false analogies. They love straw men, and they get away with it now all the time because they're continually suppressing all of the people like me who are trying to get out there and answer them. They won't debate. They won't. I can't get interviewed. They won't ever invite any of us onto talk shows or any of that. It's all one-sided now, and it has been for at least 5 years, probably 10 years, across the spectrum, except for radio, which is mostly conservative talk radio, and some documentaries that where they will play a segment that's a little truer to what you actually believe, and with less editing. It's very rare.
Well, listen, we appreciate you being on today with us. We're going to wrap up this segment. We have to get to a hard break, but we'll be promoting the event tomorrow night in Traverse City, and I'm looking forward to meeting you and giving you a copy of that movie, and be there as a possible moderator if the other side shows up. So
wonderful.
Appreciate you coming on, Dr. Scott Lively, and we'll be back right after this break.
You've heard